Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the KB Show. We've got Troy Savage with us. He's a mobility coach. We also used to play footy together as well. Really interesting story, and some of the things that he's able to do is quite amazing. If you go check out his socials, you'll see him in a pancake with his head touching the ground, full splits, Jefferson curl. So pleasure to have you on. How are you, my man?
Thanks, bro. Good studio here. It's good to be in a bit of a professional environment actually for a podcast. I'm usually in the garage with my one, so this is another level up. Got the cameras, everything. It's cool.
Yeah, bro, it's cool. Like for you guys at home, Troy does a podcast with Anthony Charrington.
Yeah.
And he's talking about you do it out of your single garage, man. That's cool. But like that was like me before getting into KB. Was like I was just doing it out of my living room. I had this little chair, bro. Put a few pot plants behind me, so I had that like scene.
Gotta start somewhere, right, bro?
Gotta start somewhere. 100%.
You just gotta start.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, man. To be honest, like when I was coming into this, I'm so glad that I got that behind me, because like just stepping into this, and I know how bad I was when I first started podcasting. So like I could imagine like the lights on you, this whole setup, and it's like interviewing like bigger names. I would have stuffed up so many things, you know what I mean? If I 100%. Didn't had that, just did it in my own living room, you know what I mean? Whatever may come, may be, you know what I mean?
Just getting in those reps. I feel comfortable.
Exactly,
like I've done podcasts before, so it's not my first rodeo. So feel comfortable.
Yeah,
good.
It's good, eh? So just give people a bit of an intro as to, obviously we played footy together. So it's like from there to you leading into being a mobility coach, then into a mobility coach.
Yep. So started background in footy. Played with you at the Eels. Went across to France.
The good old days.
Yeah, the good old days. Done 2 years overseas and was just, had a lot of niggles, had a lot of injuries, as you do with playing a contact sport like rugby league.
Yep.
I just wanted to figure out, how do I fix my body up? No one sort of gave me the right answers at the time. I had a real sore lower back, and this was in France. And I was like, man, I can't just keep living this way. I'm only 26 at the time. And, I didn't think that going through life, living with back pain was good for a 20-year-old. You know, I'm still young. That's what I was thinking. So I was like, okay, I got to search for what's out there. What can I look for to maybe help myself? And then I came across a CrossFit guy at the time, Kelly Starrett, and he was into mobility. And I went, okay, this makes sense. What he was saying is speaking about how the hips affect the lower back and whatnot. So I started doing a bit of his stuff. And believe it or not, the back started easing off, and I sort of fixed myself with my sort of own stretching and mobility, going through his sort of stuff.
Were you still playing footy at this time?
Yeah, I was like my last year of footy in France, so I was like, I better get onto it. You know what I mean? Yeah, getting older, finished up, but I just didn't want to live in pain. That was the main reason. You know what I mean? And then sort of got into mobility and said, there's something here actually that I could sort of get into, and I sort of found a passion for it through that.
Yeah, it's sort of that thing when you're like a rugby league player and it's almost like you're getting ready for training, and as long as you can sort of get through training or get through the game, it's like it doesn't matter like outside of, you might be like sitting on the couch just like in pain for the rest of the day, but it's very much just centric around of like what's happening around training and stuff like that, eh? It's like it's not really the lifestyle.
Especially with footy, you're just everything's based off that 80 minutes. Like you do your weights, you do your training, you do your stretching, you eat just to get ready for 80 minutes on a weekend, which, you know what I mean? No one else sort of goes through that, but we've been through that. And then, sometimes, but I didn't take painkillers, but I know a lot of players did just to get through to the game. They got injections in their shoulders just to,
like
everything.
Them like Skittles.
Yeah, and it wasn't a healthy lifestyle to maintain. And you know what I mean? It's just, there's another way, and that's what I wanted to go into.
And heaps of times you'd see boys like not even train during the week and just literally do a bit of captain's run and then just go out and play on the field, and then it would just be like a whole process of them trying to get ready the next week for 80 minutes, even though they're in like excruciating pain throughout the week.
Yeah, exactly. The boys were just doing whatever they could to play the game, like rest the whole body, and that's how busted their bodies were. And I think there's another way that we could probably go down to just help that out instead of just slamming your head against the wall is sort of the approach sometimes.
Yeah, work smarter, not harder, eh?
100%.
So what does mobility mean to you? I'm interested. Like a lot of people, they talk about like stretching, they talk about range of motion, range of movement. What does it mean to you?
Yeah, mobility to me is sort of like I like to get people to a level of being able to do their job pain-free. That's sort of what it means to me, mobility-wise. So if you're, it means different things to different people. So if you're a gymnast, obviously you need a lot more mobility or flexibility than, say, a footy player. But you can still utilize the training of the mobility to get you there. You know what I mean? It still doesn't mean you just because you don't need to be flexible as a rugby or league player that you don't have to do it. You know what I mean? And then sort of the benefits from it is, you can hit certain positions, you can be safer, you can feel stronger. The big thing about mobility is you actually feel strong. It's not always about lifting weights. It's, you can feel strong from holding long holds and doing things like that. And there's a lot of different avenues that you can build on top of as well. Yeah,
that was something that I want to touch on as well, was whenever I felt strongest was always when I felt most mobile. You know what I mean? Whether it be range of motion and just thinking about going into squats or just thinking about going into a bench press, the less pain, like impingement or like tightness through hip or anything like that, you have more confidence to go heavy, but also it just felt good. You know what I mean? Like the more reps you did just felt good.
Yeah, just if you take a squat, for example, you know what I mean? You're only going to go down as how you feel safe. And I think if you work on your mobility, you feel safer to go down into those ranges, right into a deep squat. But maybe before you just didn't know you were capable of it. Deal with a lot of clients who sometimes they're a bit scared, you know what I mean? They're a bit standoffish with squatting deep just because, you know what I mean? But once you explain to them, hey, just lighten the load a little bit, you don't actually need to do over 100 kilos or as much as possible and just keep on adding weight, you know what I mean? You can improve by just going less weight and more range of motion.
Yeah. It's hard to try and get clients to regress, but isn't it? You know what I mean? When they're used to lifting a certain weight and it's like you tell them, no, maybe just drop back to this, or maybe even not do a barbell squat. Maybe you go back to a goblet squat or whatever it may be. It's like it's such a hard conversation. And
people in their teens and 20s are less likely to listen, but 30s and 40s, you
30s and 40s, they can sort of understand. But it's true what you were saying. I really like that, where you the definition of a mobility to you is like someone who lives pain-free. And mobility can be anyone. Like I'm sure like people look at you and they're like, oh, I don't really need to do pancake, or I don't really need to like get my wrist past my feet on a Jefferson curl or anything like that. But at the same time, if it gets you out of pain by doing that, I think it's all the more better for them to expose themselves to a bit more mobility work and stuff that like you do.
Yeah, 100%. Like you don't have to be doing middle splits and back bends and all that, front splits and all that, but progressing towards those, you can get a lot of benefits out of it. You know what I mean? You'll find the closer you're getting to those movements, you'll find that pain sort of 90% of the time is going to disappear because you've got the right amount of mobility, flexibility to, hold those positions and get into those positions safely.
Yeah. How much do you think strength plays into living pain-free?
Yeah, massive. But strength has a bit of to do with strength can be just lifting your leg off the ground in a certain position, and strength doesn't mean deadlifting 200 kilos sometimes or benching over 100 kilos. You know what I mean? Lifting your leg off the ground or holding a hold. That's also strength, and it's always the little muscles or the little things that go wrong. It's not your big muscles that are going wrong, you know what I mean? It's all those little things that seem to get injured first.
Yeah, well, sort of that active range of motion, and I know like when I screen clients and stuff like that, maybe they might have a good squat, but you get them to stand up, lift their leg, and then you push their leg down, like say from a 9 degree, and it's just like you go straight down, and it's like that strength that you're showing through your squat pattern isn't necessarily showing, as you were saying, in the smaller muscles, the ones that go wrong and cause the pain or maybe lead to, as a chain reaction, to pain somewhere else.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know. I seem to find like as you get heavier in your weights, the mistakes or the what am I trying to get out here? So as you get heavier in your things, it seems to show your weaknesses a lot more. Yep. You know what I mean? When you're pushing that level of, you're sort of almost at your end range of strength. You know what I mean? And sort of that's when people start to get injured because they either shifty on the form or they, and do all those things and they end up getting injured, unfortunately.
Yeah, or like something else is taking over and then like exactly. That's inhibiting.
Goes into the lower back, you know what I mean? Just the simple things.
Yeah. So where did you learn to write like programs for mobility, and how did you sort of learn?
Okay, so yeah, started with that Kelly Starrett guy. He'd done all the CrossFit. He had a book, Supple Leopard. Went through all his stuff. Was Supple Leopard. Yep, Supple Leopard. Cool. So he had a lot of things, a lot of band work, very Americanized. And then had a mentor, Keegan Smith. He was doing sort of holistic approach. He was the strength and conditioning coach for the Roosters at the time, and started following him when Instagram was sort of started to getting big. And then he was doing a lot of mobility stuff as well, and I could see the benefits that it could apply to myself and footy players as well. He was doing a lot of loaded mobility, which was sort of frowned upon at the time. But if you do it safely, it's pretty safe. And he was a good mentor of mine, and I learnt a lot from him. And then I sort of would go to day courses and say from handstand coaches and movement guys. I'd learn from yoga guys, anything on social media and YouTube. I'd try it out on myself and then just go from there, and sort of started putting the pieces of the puzzle together. Yeah.
How did you get in touch with like as you're saying, the day sessions? And
they were just guys on social, and they'd pop up in Sydney and they'd do like a day course. And I did one in Byron Bay. I remember traveling, and this was when I was sort of early on in your coaching career. And I think it's really important as a coach, sort of trying to, go outside your little bubble and learn different things from different people. And I found that the movement guys and the handstand guys had mobility figured out more than the strength and conditioning and sports science. And they were like years ahead of what was getting taught, and they had the results to show as well within their bodies. They were really big on, they would actually be doing the movements themselves, not just trying to coach it and not be, a part of it. So I really liked that. So that's what I went down as well. I was making sure like my mobility was good. I wasn't going to be sort of like the fat weight loss coach, if that makes sense. In the sort of mobility sense. And then I went,
just do this. I can't actually get into it.
I didn't want to be a white belt teaching white belts. I sort of just wanted to be like, try and get my black belt, even though there was no black belts in mobility. But that was my mindset when I was trying to learn. And then as you get clients and you find different things work for different people, compared to an athlete or your general pop, you find those little differences.
Yeah, so you spoke about you were trying to push yourself and try and think outside the box from what you're usually exposed to. Where do you think like that comes from, to try and search for maybe another answers, or to search for how to progress yourself?
Yeah, I think that's I've always sort of wanted to be different. I didn't want to do the buy a house, family, white picket fence sort of thing. I was sort of outside. I always wanted to be outside the box.
I feel like anyone who started a podcast is like
that. Yeah.
100.
Tragic. And then with the internet and all that, it sort of sped things up, I found. Plus COVID, I went online with all my stuff, so that's a lot different than even when I started PT. I started in a park because I didn't want to coach certain styles myself. I was like, I just want to do my own stuff. I want to do mobility, handstands, but I couldn't go into a class, so I just started in a park and got like 5 guys together.
Did you?
And we just started in Sydney Olympic Park. So and that's how I started. And then when I went to my first gym, I said, as long as I can do my own programming, I'm happy to come do. But if I have to do your sort of style, I just want to learn from the start and on my own, and then just implement all my programming myself. So that's how I think that's how I sort of got good pretty quickly. I was spending all my time doing what I wanted to do.
That's
which is hard as a PT, because
it is hard, man.
And
how did you
I suffered like
how did you find the buy-in and stuff from people? Like
it was actually all right, because
it's kind of like a pretty niche type of sector of the fitness industry. And it's good because you're like online, because you can get that niche from like all over Australia and all over the world. But like, where was the gym? Where was the gym at?
Maryland's, and I was just in the park in Sydney Olympic Park. It was a struggle, I think.
So you're just trying to get the niche from like that little area.
Yeah, but I just couldn't. I just had these things figured out in my head, and I was like, I need to test these out. I don't think I can do another style at the moment. I want to I just believed in myself a little bit. I went, this is the right
You're
way.
onto something.
I had something. I fixed myself with some mobility stuff. I knew it was valuable sort of material, and I just wanted to keep pushing. And even though financially at the time it wasn't that great, I think I had a job as well at the time. I was doing half like traffic control work, and then going to do PT, and then going to the park to do the sessions. Yeah, it was all over the show. But I think that's how everyone starts out. You know what I mean? You're all over the place.
Oh, definitely, man. For me, like I was like working at my parents' warehouse, and then like starting there at 5, and then I'd go over and do like there'd be like a 5 p.m., 6 p.m. shift over at like class in Bondi, from Wetherill Park to Bondi.
Yeah, that's horror
and it was just like, it was just all over the place.
But that's what you have to do to, you know what I mean?
100%. And as we sort of spoke about getting the reps in, like it may not be ideal. I mean, you know what I mean? A garage podcast studio may not be ideal, but it's like it's getting the reps in. And then for like when it does come to that big stage, you're ready. You've got the preparation behind it. It's like, what's that old saying? Is it?
It's just putting in those reps, putting the hours in.
When preparation, opportunity, success is when preparation and opportunity meet each other or something.
That sounds good enough.
We'll roll with that. We'll roll with that. So you spoke about before how you sort of went through pain and into footy and stuff like that, and you were able to fix yourself from studying yourself and stuff like that. Do you feel like you're a better athlete now, if that's sort of the right word for it? Do you feel like the you now versus, say, the 24, maybe a bit jacked up but less mobility, Troy Savage?
Yeah, I think so. I think I would have handled just the in and out games every week, 26 rounds straight, a lot better recovery-wise. If I just had a routine, like, I don't know, drinking beers after the game and going out, you know what I mean? That's not the best recovery. I had a horrible diet, and I was actually speaking to a mate. Like, I was in camp with NRL Māori side, and just showing the young guys are so professional now, and they've learnt that from even 2 years ago when I was in Gold Coast with the boys. Like, just even in 2 years, it's just leaps and bounds in front of where, I don't know, I reckon back in our day was. Like, it's just methodical. They just do their work, they get their protein, they go to the ice bath straight away, they get back, they stretch, like, you know what I mean? It's very methodical and professional these days. So I was really impressed with that.
I remember when like we were coming through, it was almost like they had to like, come on, like do this. It's good for you. Trust me, it's good for you. And a lot of boys like, I don't want to do that.
I was still a bit old school. Remember we had the urine tests before training and all that, and everyone hated it. Like, which was the hydration tests. And
I feel looking back now,
but everyone does it now.
Looking back, I kind of feel sorry for like the S&C coaches and stuff, because everything that they try and implement, like, and it's all for the benefit of us. Like, it'd just be such a punish for everyone. It's like, nah, we don't want to do this. Like, that's shit. Like,
yeah, exactly.
Or like they do like some new mobility session, whatever it may be, and everyone's like, oh, you got this off YouTube.
Exactly. Like, mobility wasn't even around back then. Like, we'd do just our normal warm-up stretches, and it was just a little warm-up to be ready to run fitness.
It was like the old throw the legs over, a couple of leg swings.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Then, like,
leg swings and you're ready to go.
Just jump into it. But I feel like it also with that, they used to push a lot of like yoga and stretching, and it was all very separate, which is like what really intrigued me about like the way you do things is that like you incorporate a lot of lengthening as well as into like strength work. And you spoke about before that like doing mobility through load was sort of something that was frowned upon. How did you guys like sort of push through that? And obviously through the results that you were getting, you could obviously prove that. But I'm sort of intrigued at how they sort of come across with the strength through length type of method.
I think it was through the footy stuff, because the footy players are so tight, you know what I mean? But we're so strong as well. So just a little stretch, we wouldn't feel it. So as soon as you add some load to it, say in a Jefferson curl, like you feel it straight away. Yep. But just safely, that's the main thing with loaded stretches. You start off light and then you can progress. But with the footy players, since they're so strong already, they need to start with a bit of a higher load. You know what I mean? Jefferson curls are sort of flex spine position. They can start at 10 kilos, where a normal general pop I'd start at 1 to 2 kilos. You know what I mean? And I feel like that gives the best results. And once the boys or the footy players, once you feel a bit of lengthening through the thing and understanding, okay, that's opening up. Okay, I can touch my toes now. I never could do that through my whole career. Then you get a lot more buy-in from them as well.
Yeah, as soon as you start to feel like any results on the paddock, it's like they're in. Hey,
Yeah.
It's just like straight away, like, yep, fuck, I've felt like shit for so long, or I haven't been able to do this for so long. And it's like, yeah, whatever. Put me straight into it.
Yeah, exactly. If you can take someone's back pain away, you're a legend. If you can help them run on the paddock without getting back pain, you're like, you know what I mean? You just show them the results. Also demonstrating them myself and them seeing me, they're like, no, I'm 100 kilos. I'm just built this way. But I'm saying, nah, look at me. I can do all this stuff and, you know what I mean? Take it to the next level. So then they're like, it's actually possible.
Yeah, that's the beauty of you practicing what you preach.
Exactly.
So what would you implement if you were playing footy now? Or like, and maybe what would you remove as well?
Yeah, I'd try and do a little bit, say 15, 20 minutes. Instead of doing a warm-up, I'd probably chuck in the mobility and start at the hips is the easiest place. And it'll only take 10 minutes, 5 times a week for them to actually see results. But it's actually putting in that time and effort before a session or before weights. Maybe you'd do it before field, but I think before weights. And then, because, you got so much time as a professional athlete, like that's your full-time job. Like we know when we're training at Para and doing pre-season, say you got 2 1-hour sessions a day, maybe 3 on a big day, but then you got a lot of spare time that you can.
Yeah, there's a lot of recovery time that goes into it, isn't there?
Yeah, I'm not too sold too much on big recovery either. Yeah, I don't know, like any swimming stuff and that. I think, less time on that stuff. Maybe you could take it away from that. Less probably fitness or something. I don't know. You'd take 10, 15 minutes. It's easy to find. And once you get the results, you'll be happy days after that.
So what do you think? Like we used to do heaps of like foam rolling and static stretching. That would obviously be usually in our recovery. What are your thoughts on that?
Probably do that in their own time if they really need it. Just get that mobility and get the body moving first, and then you can probably top off with that if you still got time, I reckon, foam rolling. But it does make you feel all right when you're a bit sore and busted after a game, but that's from the contact, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's more like the getting
I
out the corks and stuff like that.
Yeah, and plus the boys are so well looked after. Like we're in camp and like they got like all our meals were taken care of. Had a high performance manager and he oversees everything, the S&C, the physio, the massages. They got 2 massages a week and like, you know what I mean? They get looked after. You don't need a foam roller.
That's hard, man.
You don't realise till you're out of the system and you're like, where's all that gone? Where's all the protein gone?
I was like, what do you have to pay for massages? What do you mean?
2 massages a week, that's enough instead of a foam roll. Do, 5, 10 minute, 15 minute mobility sessions. Yeah.
How was the camp actually?
It was awesome.
Yeah.
Yes.
The boys got up?
Yeah, good to get the win. It's just so natural. Like if you went back to footy, you'd just be like, oh, this is so easy. Yeah. Because you've just done it your whole life, and that's what it felt like. Even I ran the subs actually for the game. So
oh, did you?
Yeah, I had the earpieces into Kitty.
Did you?
And,
really? That'd have been sick.
Had Benny Gardner was the assistant coach, but he was running the blue shirt. Yeah. And it was a bit hectic because it was unlimited subs. So usually 10 subs a game, but we did about 40, I reckon. Yeah. So it was just hectic, and people were walking off the field because they're tired, and then yours unlimited subs, and the boys would walk off, and we wouldn't be ready, and we had to yell, this guy get back on, and all that stuff. It was it's chaos, organized chaos.
And it's extended bench too, isn't it? It's like 20 players or something. So it's like, what's that? 7
and
people,
no one's sitting down.
bench.
Everyone's running on the sidelines because it's a bit like, you know what I mean? It's not the same rules as the NRL. You can get away with stuff, and the boys are up and down the sideline like, who's ready for a sub to go back on? They're trying to run their own subs and everything. So it was hectic. Even at the end of the game, I didn't realize we won because I was so trying to zone in. I had a plan of all the times everyone had to go on and off, and just had to keep. Yeah, I couldn't even watch the game really. I just remember one break that Chanel did, and then had to watch the game the next day pretty much and see it all.
Sounds like nines, man. Remember we used to play nines and we'd just be like, put our hand up.
Yeah, exactly.
Like
the boys were putting their hands up
just
and
run off.
Tired, and we had a good rotation where we'd just the experienced players would swap, and then you didn't want too much inexperienced players because we had some young guys with us this year. So, but it all worked out, bro. Got the win. Yeah.
And what were you doing like during the week with them? What was your sort of role?
I was like the facilities. I was like setting up all the training, all the gym sessions, making sure we had the protein there, and all that. I took the boys for a mobility session on game day. That was cool.
Nice.
Went for a walk, just did light stuff, and then just worked with the players one-on-one. They'd ask, oh, can you give me a few stretches here? And once I was stretching one guy, the other guys would just jump in and be like, oh, yeah, what's this? But they still got the bands. They put the band around the waist and the leg and just lie on the ground on their phone like this.
They're still doing that.
You know the band, right? That's the stretch. You put your leg across your body and then you go to the groin. Yeah, that's what you got. So.
Wow. Oh, well, I suppose things...
Still happening.
Yeah, some things haven't changed, have they?
Bro.
So we'll take it back to a little bit of gem pop. Just, I was curious. I get a lot of clients and stuff. Obviously, they complain a little bit of back pain, or maybe they've had a pre-existing shoulder injury, and they're always sort of scared to do anything around that, and they'd rather just avoid it. So say it doesn't have to be like they're in acute pain at the moment, but just something that they sort of experience over time. What would be your advice into maybe trying to strengthen that or lengthen that back out? To give you context, we just say a 50-year-old man who is experiencing back pain.
Yep.
Yeah.
So the good thing with mobility is you can sort of regress everything to, and pretty much is body weight, body weight exercises, and you can put them in positions, joint positions where it's very safe. And since you're only using your body, the positions are very safe. So lower back pain, always start at the hips. Tight hips is usually the main cause, and 99% of what I've come across anyway. And everyone sits down so much, during work and driving and whatnot, that they don't even know what their hip flexors are. They've never felt them before. You can get someone just to lift their leg as high as they can. You know what I mean? And that's not going to cause any injury at all, even if they are injured or had a hip replacement or any of those things. So I feel like the just knowing where to start with mobility is really good. You can just do joint circles. I call them cars. I even do them with the professional athletes. And it's just doing a circular motion with the joint that's actually in pain and just getting that movement through it. And I think they get a bit of confidence, you know what I mean? Sometimes it's like, oh, there's pain there, do not move it at all, which is sort of probably the worst thing you can do, you know what I mean?
Yeah. I feel that's sort of where I was sort of taking the question, was because a lot of people are sort of scared to experience that pain again, or they're scared to sort of test it. But as you say, this is probably the worst thing you can do, because it's just going to get more and more locked up, or you're just going to use another muscle to compensate for, say you got soreness on the right side, you're compensating with your left. You know what I mean? You're always going to have imbalances if you keep that approach. Yeah,
exactly. And then you can find a safe alternative for most exercises. Having a good coach to sort of direct you in that way. And you don't have to use a band or thing. You can just move your shoulder back and forth. You can move your leg up and down. Yeah. All the movements that you actually are doing during the day, you don't realize. You know what I mean? You can do less than that and just progress it onwards. But it just takes a bit of time. But it's always possible. The worst thing a person can do is just say no, and no, that's not going to work. You know what I mean? You sort of phase yourself out before you even tried something, to be honest.
Yeah. And as you said, you can always regress for something. If something's not working for you, there's always some type of regression, whether it's something super simple as you're talking about, just rolling the shoulder over. If that gets it moving, you know what I mean? It's going to do something.
You need movement through the joints, and that's the main thing that I try and get across to people. Just move it, and, it'll start fixing itself.
So from a mobility coach's perspective, lower back, people say, I just need to stretch my hamstrings out when they got sore lower back.
Hips. Start at the hips, bro. It's everything. I get everyone on the couch stretch straight away. That's the easiest one. Set up like that, and man, I've had heaps of success just doing one stretch, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Honestly, the couch stretch is if people just commit to that, it will fix so many of their problems. And it's man, when it's not the hamstrings, the hamstrings, it's like a consequence of that is why your hamstrings feel tight. You know what I mean? It's because your hips are so jacked up.
Exactly. It's just point them in the right direction, start on that. And then once they feel that little, okay, my back pain's not feeling as bad today.
Yeah. So I want to cut this clip up and share it with any of my clients that say they need
Add
a
in some, add in some couch stretch in there too.
Yeah. And if you're hamstrings, it's not your hamstrings.
No, yeah.
So what about some gym advice or advice for gym bros that are worried about losing their strength if they're trying to get into mobility? I know we touched on this a little bit before, but I know you do a lot of strength work, and obviously you're a very mobile guy, but you're quite strong as well.
Yeah.
What's some advice you'd give to maybe a young sort of in their mid-20s?
I could still bench 180 and squat 200 when I was doing pancakes and middle splits and everything. So I haven't come across it hurting my strength gain. So sort of results sort of speak for themselves. And there's a lot of examples of guys that are super flexible. I think it's Klokov. He's an Olympic lifter. Yeah, he can do pancakes and everything, and I think he can snatch 180, which is another level.
Which is
so
ridiculous.
Yeah, it's I don't know, it's just a fallacy. There's a lot of them that go around.
I think it's a little bit like if you dig real deep, it's kind of like an excuse to like, I just really like what I'm doing. Don't mess with it.
Yeah, but if it's holding you back from reaching your potential, like if you've always got that bung shoulder when you're trying to grow your chest, it's like, you know what I mean? You're just gonna cap your potential, and maybe mobility might be something that they can look at to, fix those areas.
Yeah. What would you do for, say, like shoulder impingement? For, say, someone on a bench press?
Shoulders are exactly like the hips. So, so they have to be able to rotate externally and internally, sort of test first, and then you can just do that movement, to be honest, on the ground, and then you can start loading it with dumbbells or whatnot, bands and etc. But it's sort of just, I find the best thing with mobility is finding, like, testing and then improving from there and programming towards you getting better.
Okay, so just like almost like a progressive overload, but for mobility. Yeah, it's
exactly the same as strength programming, but I've just done it for mobility, which is sort of where I'm feeling like I reckon physios and all that, they go wrong with it. They give you the exercises, but they can't program the regression and progression so you actually get the results. So that's where I've sort of applied that strength and conditioning background to mobility and treated it as strength and conditioning exercise. And that's why I think the results sort of come as well. Yeah,
and you've had some amazing results. You've worked with a fair few clients now.
I think on the online program, at least 1,000 people have come through. So I've seen a lot of every sign up that comes through, they send 10 photos through. Yep. So I've seen every shape and size body, and everyone's been able to improve. Yeah, I haven't had anyone unless they haven't actually done the program, improve. So, so it's a lot of reps in that sense, and just pure mobility stuff as well. And it's good to get results and being able to show them their before and afters, and you know what I mean. Sometimes you change their lives as well by taking that pain away, and they always thought, I'm just going to live like this for the rest of my life, and you know what I mean. You get some good results, and it's good as a coach to hear those things as well.
Might be a hard question, but what's probably the biggest standout for you, like a client was?
Ooh,
it's a tough one, I know.
I've got heaps of clients, so I try and get everyone to be able to touch their toes with flat palms on the ground, do a pancake, and do the couch stretch on the wall.
Yeah, so was that shoulder blades to the wall type thing?
Yeah, so anyone that can hit all those three are doing pretty well, and then I get them working on some advanced stuff. Off the top, just anyone who's been living with pain for like 2 to 3. I have heaps of people they just live with pain and they think that's just normal. And then they've come across some of my stuff, they've implemented it, and they're like, bro, my back pain's hasn't felt like this in years. Yeah. And it's just by some simple drills. I don't give them, I do basics to start with, and even that. So I think that's why I keep continuing on with it, because I know heaps of people out there living in a bit of pain, and it's not good. I've done it.
Yeah, it is amazing. It would be very rewarding for people living in pain, and if you be able to show them the way out of that. But I was wondering how you feel sort of about people who come into a sort of rounded shoulder position. Do you get a lot of that when you're coaching? I find pretty much most people that I deal with are very much because they're just in the office all the time, and they're sort of rounded shoulders. Do you find that a lot as well?
Yeah, definitely, especially with all the pandemic. I do one corporate Zoom session a week, and they sort of suffer from the same tight hips and rounded shoulders just because that's the position. That's super hard to fix because you might do mobility for 15 minutes, but then you're doing 6 hours in that position. So it's sort of a habit thing as well. I've found posture-wise, just being able to sit up right, and even I do it naturally as well. I don't think it's too much of a problem, to be honest, long as everything else is, you know what I mean? If they're not doing any exercise or getting out and walking, it will become a problem eventually. But
if it's leading into like headaches and migraines.
Yeah, because I even slouch forward a little bit, but
I'm doing it right now.
Yeah, if you watch this back, like I've probably done it as well. But when I need to, I know my shoulders feel alright for what I need to do. But yeah, if you're getting headaches and that, it's probably something to work on.
Something to look at.
Thoracic and all that, you know what I mean? You don't want to be a hunchback.
Yeah. Get that mad.
Wise, it doesn't look good either. Like,
yeah.
You know what I mean? You look a lot more confident.
And it will obviously help with shoulder impingement and being able to externally
100%.
Rotate if you can actually, if your shoulders aren't like this to start with.
Yeah, exactly.
So, do you implement much core work?
Core, nah. I think that naturally comes from some of the strength stuff I do. So, actually, you could count some of the hip flexor work I do, which is super tough, which is pretty much core as well. I call it compression. So to be able to fold your body, you need to be able to have enough strength in the hips and core to compress yourself down. So that is something I do actually. So leg lifts, but not your traditional core like a plank or sit-ups. You know what I mean? It's a little bit different. It's incorporating the hip flexor so your body can actually compress and bend down. So sometimes the biggest problem when people touch their toes is when they go down, they get the cat and they can't actually fold down. So that's weak hip flexors. They can't compress. Sometimes it's just people not knowing their body as well, and you just need to keep getting in reps and reps of J curls or leg lifts, etc.
Yeah. So is that just like when you're talking about just like it's more like pulling yourself into that position rather than falling?
Yeah. So if you're touching your toes, you're lengthening through your hammies and lower back, but then you're shortening on the other side through the hips and quads. So they play a role as well. And that's usually where people getting it wrong. They don't actually know that is pulling them into position. Yeah.
Do you think that would help with like stability as well? Because that's something that like I've done a course and he spoke about it a lot, the guy that I did it through. He always spoke about that it doesn't matter what movement you're in, you're always in like a contraction phase. So whether you're in a bench press, it's almost like you're pulling that down and then you're pushing it back up.
Yep, 100%. Yeah, you're using your both sides of the muscle, you know what I mean? Your opposites, and to come down and go up. So it's the same thing with mobility, I've found.
Yeah. And since like the tib raises and stuff like that, since incorporating them, I'll notice a massive difference with my squat, like being able to stabilize, like pull yourself into the tib raise and feel like your knee coming over toe and then being able to come out, like you feel so much more stable. You actually get way more glute activation as well.
Yeah, I didn't even know there was a muscle there, to be honest. Before tib raises, I was like, is there a muscle? But I do 20 of them and there's a muscle there.
Yeah, and then you go, the only time you know is when you get shin splints.
Yeah, exactly. I just think that's the bone.
Yeah. And then you just have to get it rubbed out.
Yeah, I didn't know what a tib raise was before the knees over toes guy sort of explained it, and then I was okay. But then you can actually, I know what you mean when you're feeling in the squat and the split squat. You can actually feel that tib pull your ankle down and get deeper.
Yeah, I've done it like this experiment a couple of times with my clients, and when you get them to do, so I do split squat, and then you get them to do tib raise, and then think about like how they're in that motion and then pulling them up, and then go back, and like before they'll sort of wobbly, and then you get them to think about pulling themselves into it, and they just like go straight into it, and they're super, super way more stable.
Yeah, 100%. I've seen people get people lie on their back and then bring their knees to their chest as well. So that's that compression part of a squat, and then go to squatting. So it's sort of similar thing, but just with the upper leg part of the workout.
Yeah. That's what I was saying before with the like lifting your leg up and being able to push it down.
Yeah.
It's like just because you can put 100 kilos on your back and it can push you into that, but you can't lift your own leg up. It's like that's just a recipe waiting to happen, really.
Exactly, bro. Exactly. All the simple stuff. It's always good to have that foundational strength. Go back to the basics if things are not working out, if you're getting injured all the time. Foundational stuff's super important.
Yeah. We're about to head downstairs and we're going to do a little mobility session just to educate some
Let's
people.
go.
So I'm keen for that. You can walk me through it. I'm sure I'm going to be absolutely horrible. But yeah, tune in for that, guys. So we're going to do a little educational. We're just going to touch on a few things that can help with like shoulder impingement, lower back pain. He's going to show you some regressions and progressions. But thanks heaps for coming in, man. I really appreciate it. Also, give yourself a little plug so where people can find you. Instagram, your podcast and stuff.
Instagram, Coach Troy Savage. TikTok, Savage Mobility. And YouTube, I don't know, actually. Troy Savage or something. Yeah. I just throw shit everywhere, eh, bro? I'll figure out all that stuff out later.
Yeah.
3 different names.
Yeah, I feel like that's you. It's just like, you just go, hey, this seems pretty cool. I might just do it.
Yeah,
And
just
then
do
like,
it, bro. Same with the podcast.
I'm going to do this later. Do you want to give us a look down the camera and a like and subscribe, bro? Make sure you like and subscribe to the podcast. Love it. Thanks, guys. Cheers for tuning in. As he said, like and subscribe. And if you can share any stories that you listen to the podcast, if you find it informative, please do share it out. It helps to grow the platform. And we do appreciate you for listening. And thanks for coming on, man.